wrist flexors, Theraband. Now remember what we said about the prime movers for the wrist flexors and extensors. They originate either on the medial or lateral epicondyle, and in this case, the flexors originate on the medial epicondyle. The extensors originate on the lateral epicondyle, one of them on the lateral supracondylar ridge. The bellies are up in the forearm. The tendons extend, cross the wrist, the flexors anteriorly, the extensors posteriorly, to insert on the base of a metacarpal. Now take the thumb out of it. The ulnar deviators are going to insert on the base of the fifth, either on the front if you're a flexor or posterior if you're an extensor. And the radial deviators are going to insert on 2 and 3, again anteriorly if you're a flexor, posteriorly if you're an extensor. And the really cool thing is they are named after their actions. So you got a flexor and an ulnar deviator, that's the flexor carpi ulnaris. You got a flexor and a radial deviator, that's the flexor carpi, remember carpi wrist, radialis. You've got an extensor carpi ulnaris, which extends and ulnarly deviates the wrist. You then have an extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, and those two muscles extend. Now the longus goes over to the second digit, base of second metacarpal, so it's a radial deviator. The brevis attaches to the base of the third, so it's kind of in the midline, so not that great of a radial deviator. So let's look at the skeleton. So here's my medial epicondyle. I'm going to come down, across the front of the wrist, pisiform, base of fifth. I am the flexor carpi ulnaris, so ulnar deviator flexor. And that is innervated by the ulnar nerve, and it is the C8 and T1 nerve root. Now I'm not going to take my origin away, but I'm going to cross the front of the wrist and go down to the base, anterior surface, base of 2 and 3 metacarpal. I flex the wrist and I radially deviate. I am the flexor carpi radialis. I'm innervated by the median nerve and the C6 and 7 nerve roots. Flexor carpi radialis, C6 and 7 nerve roots. Now the extensors originate in and around the lateral epicondyle. The extensor carpi ulnaris, lateral epicondyle. Now let's turn the skeleton around because we want to see posteriorly, okay, down to the base of the fifth. So I extend and I ulnarly deviated, and I am innervated by the radial nerve. Remember the extensor nerve. The extensor carpi ulnaris is innervated by the C6, 7, and 8 nerve root. I'm going to stay on the lateral epicondyle, but I'm going to go to the base of the second metacarpal. I extend the wrist, but I radially deviate because I'm on the radial side of the hand. I am the extensor carpi radialis longus. Radial nerve, remember the extensor nerve, C6 and 7 nerve root. The last wrist extensor is the extensor carpi radialis brevis. It originates on the lateral supracondylar ridge and lateral epicondyle, down to the base of the third metacarpal posterior surface, because these are extensors, and it's in the middle, so I'm hoping you can see it is not a very good radial deviator. It is a good wrist extensor. So at best it might assist with radial deviation, but not a prime mover like the longus. The extensor carpi radialis brevis, radial nerve, and just like the longus, C6 and 7 nerve roots. Theraband, wrist flexors and extensors. Happy Saturday.